CNN-FM, the financial network.
Welcome back to It's Only Money. It's quiet on Wall Street, but there are fireworks exploding all around the country. And some of the biggest happenings are coming straight out of one place that can be considered a real piece of Americana, Hollywood. Many viewers are interested in how Demi Moore gets more money for taking it all off than any woman in America, and how exactly do Arnold and Eddie decide how much of the box office gross they can pocket? Well, joining us to discuss our favorite box office stars and how they get such a big bang out of their movie contracts is Brian Murphy. He's an attorney to the stars, if he doesn't mind us saying that. And we'll also take your calls if you have a question about contracts, 1-800-304-FNET. Brian, welcome to It's Only Money. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
What is the one thing that you go for when you start a contract?
Well, I think it depends on who you're dealing with. If you're dealing with a major star, then certainly where you deal with where you start is the quote that he had for his last film, and you look at whether or not there was any success or modicum of success with the box office gross from the last film. Obviously, there's variations to that norm. If you have a situation where you have an actor who otherwise had a fairly mid-level quote for his services to a production company or a film project, and he had a breakout film in his last outing, give you an example, Keanu Reeves in Speed, then representing that actor, you would want to start with other actors who are similarly situated, at least in terms of being able to produce box office results.
We should remind our viewers we are taking telephone calls at 1-800-304-FNET. If you have a question about negotiating or about Hollywood stars, you can give us a call and speak with Brian. Let me ask you, how is it different negotiating a talent contract for a movie star as opposed to some other kind of employment contract?
Well, if you're speaking of a talent contract for a superstar as opposed to a talent contract for someone who would otherwise is not a superstar but also in the business, typically they would get a Screen Actors Guild minimum actor agreement, which attorneys like myself typically don't get involved too much in unless that actor has some leverage and he's been able to negotiate a certain percentage over a certain deal point in that agreement. I would basically prepare a writer to that Screen Actors Guild minimum agreement, and we would go with that. But any actor who is in demand by production companies for film projects typically employ an attorney at some point down the road, create a long form agreement, and that's a totally different process.
Brian, are you really only as good as your last performance and can only get as good as your last performance, or is there leeway in there for a couple of flops, or will you take a little bit of a hit if you've had some near misses but not true successes?
It really depends. It's sort of a fluid situation. I mean, there are actors who have not had great success, but they still are able to command their standard quote. And a lot of that has to do with the nature of the previous project, whether or not, in fact, it was really attributable to the project itself and the writing, or maybe or some other aspect of the project, or whether or not it was really the actor who wasn't able to deliver.
All right, we are going to open up the telephones. We've got Lori in New York with the question. Go ahead, Lori. All right, we seem to have lost Lori. All right, now I'm told we have Pat from New York on the line. Go ahead, Pat.
Hi, I just had a question regarding whether or not you saw a trend in terms of actors wanting to sooner have a piece of the action in terms of profits going forward, or do you think they're better off making money up front in terms of limiting their upside? I think sometimes they would get, say, 20% of gross profits as opposed to just a one-time contract, say $1 million up front, regardless of how well the movie does.
Well, really, that's a consideration of how badly maybe that actor wants to get involved in that particular project or not. Certainly, if it's a project that you think is going to be a breakout piece for you, then you're going to be more willing to reduce your upfront fee and then maybe take a deferred payment, which basically means that at some point in time there's additional funds released, or when some conditions are met, then you have also the prospect of additional funds being released. Or you go into a situation where you, as you've spoken of, a deferred, not a deferred, but a back-end participation, which can start anywhere from a superstar who can demand a percentage of first dollar gross all the way down the rungs of the ladder to net profit participation that's standard, which means you probably won't see anything. So it really depends upon how badly you want to be involved in that particular project. If there's a lot of people vying for that part, you're more willing to structure your deal so it's more back-end in order to get to be involved in that particular film project.
Brian, should you ever work for free if you're a new actress? Or I've heard of directors putting up their own money to do a film. Is this a position of weakness? Should you ever do this?
Directors putting up their own money?
Mm-hmm.
I think that it really depends on what alternatives you have. If, in fact, you have a film project and you know that the only way to get it off the ground is to borrow from friends and to mortgage your house, and you think it will get you at least to the next level in terms of having some success either on the festival circuit or the art house circuit, then I think, in fact, it may be a good investment. It just really depends on the nature of the project and how badly that individual wants to be involved in the industry.
All right, Lori from New York is back on the line. What's your question?
Hi, as an African American, most of them, apart from Denzel Washington and a very few others, can demand the amount of money that they want to earn for a movie. Do you think Will Smith, because he did so well in Bad Boys and he's doing so well in Independence Day, do you believe he'll be able to make a demand and the amount of money he wanted to earn for the next movie?
Well, yeah, I think if you had his agent or attorney on, he would tell you that definitely, based upon the box office gross, at least from the first couple of days of Independence Day, certainly his compensation level is going to go up. Really, the way that you start negotiations when you're representing talent in the industry, the jumping off point is always what happened with the last feature film that they were involved in.
Thanks very much for joining us from L.A.
Thank you, John and Kitty.